see. Music. Welcome, folks. We're going to take a couple minutes and let everybody get logged in before we get started here. You want to throw in the chat when you're plugging from today? That would be awesome. Get to know you a little bit. Welcome, everybody. Please feel free to drop in the chat where you're from today. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And let the music play for a couple of moments here to get everybody situated, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry, the music's not working. I'll stop that. Best of intentions. I've been having audio issues this morning, so I apologize for that. We got about 63 people in here. Everybody seems kind of shy. Why not? Nobody's dropping in the chat where they're from. We'll just give it a few more moments. We still got people coming in. Here we go. We got Phoenix, Kansas City, London, French living in Spain, Texas. I got some return folks. Welcome, Adam, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Wow, look at you all. Brad Hicks, oh my gosh. Talk about a blast from the past. Virginia, Las Vegas again. We had somebody snarky from Las Vegas on the CST. Not snarky, but just fun. Neenah, Wisconsin, Edinburgh. Yes, I love Edinburgh. Tampa. Yes, Brad, it's been almost 20 years. That's a sad but true story. So Brad was a ServiceNow employee back in the early days when I joined. He left the rocket ship, but everybody's chooses their own path here. Oh, here's Glasgow, another one of my favorite towns, Bangalore, Mumbai, Denver, Brazil. We are truly international today. This is awesome. We're so excited to have all of you here today. We've been working really hard on getting this webinar together for you. So it looks like people coming in has slowed down. So I'm going to go ahead and get this party started. And let's get rolling here. All right, so welcome today to our Platform Owners Roundtable. Oops, sorry. We are going to talk to you today about platform tech governance in particular. But first, we want to give you a little bit of time to network, but let me get into the agenda here. So what we'll be doing today is just getting settled here, this welcome time. We've got about 5 minutes allocated for that. Then we'll move into what I'm calling the speed networking, where I'm going to set you up in breakout rooms, and you're going to hopefully have a moderator in each one of those who will just kind of keep the conversation going, let us know, how long you've been in the ServiceNow ecosystem and what your experience has been with governance so far. And we'll give that about 10 minutes, depending on how that's going. We might end a little earlier if we can get, if everybody gets a chance to talk sooner, because then that would allow us more time for our programming, which I have 2 wonderful speakers lined up today to take us through the tech governance programming. Then we'll have about 10 minutes for Q&A and about 5 minutes for our wrap up. So we're going to move right into the breakout rooms. While I'm getting the breakout rooms set up, I'm going to start a poll here for you because this is my first time running the breakout rooms, and I might need a couple minutes here to get this going. So let me get that going. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create the breakout rooms. You'll be automatically assigned to a room. And let me know if it's working. You should be getting into your rooms. All right, can anybody just drop in the chat? Let me ensure that you're able to get into the breakout rooms. No sign of breakout room yet. Okay. I'm not sure why that's not working. Okay, let me try this again. Great. Unfortunately, there's no way to really practice setting up breakout rooms, so I apologize for that.
Britta, maybe click open all rooms.
I did. But it has. Okay. Still no breakout rooms?
Said they were in and then they got bumped back out.
Okay. All right, it looks like it's working. I'm seeing some people in rooms now. You do have to join the breakout room when the window pops up.
Shall we just join
Yeah,
as we wish?
yes.
Okay.
All right, so somebody want to take another room? We got Maria, you want to take room number 2? And Arjun, I'll give you room number 3.
Thank you.
I'll take 4, and Nick or Alan, you can both join 5 if you want to join.
I'll join 5. Or we can both join 5.
Okay.
Use yourself. I'm sorry for doing it this way.
All right,
We even
back.
can't.
We're back.
We're back.
Yes. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry, I know some of the groups didn't get time to complete a round. We'll try to have smaller breakout rooms next time with some more moderators. So without further ado, we're going to get back into the presentation here, and I want to have a chance to introduce our speakers here. So I have Nick Nash here from ServiceNow and Alan Andreas here as well, who's one of our community MVPs. And I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Nick, please.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm Nick Nash. I'm a principal platform architect, and I've been here at ServiceNow for about 3.5 years. Been in the ecosystem for about 10 years. Worked at various different partners and for different groups that were implementing it. So happy to be here and talk to you about governance.
Alan?
And hi, everybody. I'm Alan Andreas, a principal ServiceNow practice architect at ICF. So I lead what we're doing in the organization as far as the practice delivery framework, governance, service offerings, our innovation and growth. So super excited to be here today. I'm also a certified master architect, been a community MVP for the past 6 years. And I do run a YouTube channel called Alan Ovation that features ServiceNow focused videos, but we're here for you today. We're very excited on this topic. So thank you all for joining.
Right, awesome. I'm thrilled to have the two of you here. I'm just going to kick off what our learning objectives are for today. So we're going to just introduce the 3 types of governance, and so that you're aware of all of those. But then we're going to really start to drill into the technical governance, because what we want to do is leave you with something that you can action on when you leave this meeting. So we felt by taking one chunk and going after that and giving you tools and suggestions for how to establish technical governance would be a win for you today. Then we'll talk about some of the challenges and key successes for running a governance program. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we measure success, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So I am going to, I think I predated myself by going through the agenda as well. Anyway, like I said, we'll talk about what is governance. We'll do this focus, and then we will have some resources and links that we'll send out to you with the deck when we send that out after the call here. So I am going to turn it over now to Alan, who's going to talk to us about the 3 types of governance boards and kick things off.
Yeah, thank you, Britta. So what we learned through the poll, and kind of is known within the ecosystem and really reiterated in our breakout rooms, especially the room that I was in, is that a lot of people are either in their early stages of their ServiceNow journey, or they're in early stages of governance. So I do want to give a shout out to anyone that's in the early part of their experience with ServiceNow, whether as a professional or as, you know, with it being in your organization, and you are here at this session today or watching the recording, please make sure that you just take a moment, give yourself kudos for even being involved in these discussions so early, because people will be doing this for years and years and years, and they will either never get into it or they struggle to get into it way down the road. So great job for you being here today, and for everyone really for being here. So when we talk about governance, we don't just mean, oh, there's one flavor of governance or one piece of governance. There's really 3 different components to a well-formulated governance structure within an organization when you have ServiceNow. So those 3 types of boards are your executive steering board. And as you can see on the slide here, this is going to be your senior IT and business leaders. You have your demand board, and then you have your technical governance board. So today, in a moment, we're going to dive in a bit deeper into technical governance. But for this slide here, we wanted to talk about, well, what do these 3 types of boards kind of deal with from a very high level? And you'll see on the left-hand side underneath the questions, the little bubbles there, that's normally what types of questions will flow and pipeline into each of these boards. So just from a high level, these are the ones that are here, and we'll step through technical governance now.
Right.
One more click.
Easy for you to say.
There we go.
Oh.
All right. All right. So the first governance board that we talk about is demand governance. So that's when somebody is asking your group for something. Can you click one more? And the people that comprise that governing board tend to be process owners, your platform owner, ServiceNow architects. And then where that usually comes from is, if you're greenfield, it comes from workshops. If you've been in ServiceNow for quite a while and you're past that workshop stage, that tends to be just from your different BUs. It can be anybody within your company. So it's any sort of thing that they're asking for from the ServiceNow platform. You may have a demand intake board that is comprised of, multiple other tools, not just ServiceNow. All of that can go through this process. You can go and use ServiceNow's demand management functionality as well. But then it goes to that review step where you essentially give it an up-down vote. You say, whether we want to do it or not. And then you try to determine if other areas of the business unit are doing it. So depending on how big your company is, you may have other areas that are actually already trying to do these particular things. So this is not just a vetting step, but a deduplication step. Next. All right, cool. So let's say, yes, we're going to do it. So then you hand it off to your architects. You have them develop an initial solution. They go through a peer review step. They say, all right, this is how I think we would do it. Try to get somebody that's outside of the group to then review that. And then next.
I don't know what's going on with my mouse today.
That's all right. So when you have that, that solution, it's been vetted, then you pass it over to your technical review board. Usually that technical review board, you might have a design review board, you might have kind of all in one for this tech review board. What they're looking for is how much tech debt is this adding to the platform? Does it need to be done in that particular way, or can it be done in a way that is more out of the box? And if it can't, and this is a good solution, and as a business you want to push forward with it, usually what we would recommend is to add that to some sort of tech debt log. That way you can circle back on it if it is adding too much tech debt or what you feel is an above zero amount of tech debt. All right, next. And the board is comprised by your dev team, your platform owner, your architects, and your product owners, process owners. And the reason that you want the process owner there is oftentimes when that demand ends up getting to that tech board, you need the why behind, okay, so why are we doing this in the first place? Why is this needed? And those process owners are very good at speaking to what the actual business requirements are, because you'll find that a solution can reach the board and it may be presupposing certain things and it may not be the root level of requirements. And that's why it's very important to have that process owner. And the other governing board, so for what Alan was talking about, so we have the demand, we've got the tech governance, we've got executive governance. That executive governance board is going to be more like your steering committee. And that's going to be comprised of your executive sponsors, your success architects, enterprise architects, and platform owners. So they're thinking about it from a very big picture perspective. All right, next. All right, so just to kind of highlight what each board is doing. So from a demand perspective, it's what's wanted, what demands are needed for approval. Do we want to do it? Is anybody else doing it? Is there any sort of deduplication work that can happen? From a tech governance, it's, okay, we might need to request budget from the executive board. We want to prioritize these particular requests, and we want to design the solution and determine what the impact is. Right. Next. And from the executive board, so really looking at strategic positioning, what are the initiatives that we want to go in and have take place? So do we want to implement HRSD, or do we want to implement some sort of microcosm of HR functionality? What is the budget that we're willing to allocate towards these things? And then what are our guiding principles in general? Next. All right.
All right. So as we kind of step through this a bit more with technical governance, one of the overarching things that you really want to pay attention to is to define your golden rules. And so these are your guidelines, your principles, however you kind of word it, but they're basically simple, clear statements that are transparent and explain why you go with a certain direction with one of your rules. And so if we step through kind of some examples here, one of them will be, well, we always want to be on the latest version of ServiceNow within, a certain period of months from when it comes out. We want to be able to use automated testing and rapid deployment. So this is kind of an example of just one of those. We have a couple more in here, but again, these are meant to be rules that are transparent to everyone else. This isn't something like within the technical governance board that you keep internally, but you can have that in a knowledge article or somewhere else to where when someone else asks for something, you can point to it and go, per our golden rules, this is kind of how we position things. And it may not always be 100%. A lot of times you'd be able to just point to this and kind of dictator it and go, boom, there it is. That's what we're going to do. They may shift and change, and there's no limit to the amount of kind of golden rules that are there. And so over time, this is going to build out really kind of your policy guidelines and things like that. So a couple others here, we design and build using out of the box. We're only going to customize when there's a clear business need and there's nothing else. There's not, hey, we're about to upgrade soon, and in that upgrade, we're going to get this new feature. So can we just hold off for like 3 months? Those types of things you'll want to evaluate. And then for integrations, we only want to do those if they're going to deliver value. Bespoke build, so internally built custom solutions is really kind of the last option. So that's kind of the golden rules. And now we're going to kind of step through what a maturity model would kind of look like.
Before we
in
do
a minute
that,
after the poll.
yeah, we're gonna give our speakers a minute to grab a sip of water while you take a poll. So want to know, what are your biggest obstacles for governance? So we have a rating scale here. You start with 1 being the most biggest obstacle in your environment and 5 being the least. So we'll give you a few moments to noodle on that. We try to keep these sessions somewhat interactive and let you participate. And I'm very happy to see the chat blowing up here with people asking questions and other people chiming in, which is awesome. That's what this situation's all about. Hopefully you can help learn from one another as well as from us. So I'd like to see that happening. So keep it coming, folks. So it looks like we got about half of you have responded to the poll so far. So I'll give it a couple more moments here. Let everybody have a chance to, oh crap, I brought up the wrong poll. I am so sorry. Anyway, I'm kind of new to doing all the background stuff for the webinars as well as getting the program together and everything. So I apologize. I'm getting better every week or every month, hopefully. So please bear with me. So it looks like we've got about 73% participated on that. So let's move on to our maturity model. I'll leave the poll up if people want to continue taking that, but I'll let Alan and Nick take this one away as we walk through this.
Yeah, so if we enter in the first column here, this is basically, so the idea here, if you haven't been paying attention to everything else, maybe you've been kind of multitasking, this would be where you want to kind of take a moment and join us 100% at the webinar, because Nick and I have done an extreme amount of research, diligence in our efforts to prepare this. This will be your one slide that's really going to help you get technical governance stood up and moving through the process. And so it's going to be a lot of information here, but we're going to walk through it level by level. And so for the first one, we have a little baby here. This is what I would call kind of a pre-crawl. So you're not even fully crawling yet. This is what you would normally see in webinars and other things and presentations and documents. Is these are the steps that would be here. So we're going to get into more stuff in just a minute, but for the start of it, you really want to recruit someone to chair the board. This is normally going to end up being the platform owner and the persona that this webinar was kind of focused towards. This is the easiest board, we say easiest very lightly, to stand up. So that's why we're covering technical governance. This is where a platform owner has more influence and more assertiveness to get this board stood up. So that's why we are starting here. Then you want to, other key items is set a charter, right? So the charter is, what is the purpose? What is our expected outcomes? Why are we here? What are we doing? And then you want to recruit other stakeholders to get involved. And as Nick showed on the previous slide, and some people in the chat have made good points, hey, you don't want to dilute this with 30 people. It's not supposed to have a ton of people on it. So you want to recruit other stakeholders that are going to provide a diverse perspective on technical governance. You don't need to have everybody else in here. And then you want to define the responsibilities. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to interject on exactly that point. Don't expect to get it right the first time. So that board size will likely grow and shrink as time goes on. But I've seen plenty of boards that start out with just a few people, and that's the right size for that particular organization. I've seen it where, you know, it can be over 60 people, and I can certainly say that was not the right size for that organization. So just try to iteratively work through that and make sure that you are staying on point with as few people as possible. Sorry.
Yeah,
Alan.
great call out, Nick. No, that's great. Yeah, and so you're going to see a common theme through the rest of these slides, the sections as well. It's start small, don't have, you know, a bigger stomach than you need, you know, don't take on more than you need to. Start slowly, start small, and we're going to walk through how you'll do that. But the other pieces here, you're going to need to have possibly executive sponsorship, right? So this is a challenge where people will hit. So you'll see building a strong board. Someone mentioned, hey, we have a bunch of it's junior team members, low experience. We don't have a lot of people with ServiceNow experience. What can we do here? And so we're saying, hey, have an architect, have a lead developer, have this. And that all sounds great if you have all of those, but what if you don't? So a few pieces in mind here is that consider or look into if your organization has an impact contract with ServiceNow, because you're going to get supplemented with some of these roles by people from the impact team from ServiceNow. Outside of that, we have resources at the end of the presentation that are going to walk through some Now Learning material where you can have your team members go in and spin up and get trained on this. Another alternative is to consider a ServiceNow partner. Maybe they come in and just help you with the governance aspect. They're not doing much else, but maybe they come in. These are going to be types of people that you want to have on there. And as far as the diverse perspective, again, it's, you could start out very small. You have your platform owner. They are responsible for really kind of just making sure the board is staying on track, doing what they're supposed to do. They're not going to probably know all of the technical answers. That's why you have other people. So you surround yourself with quote unquote other smart people. And then you kind of let the architect talk about wide reaching solutions. Your lead developer is going to make sure that things are following leading practices, and also really reiterating the need to capture technical debt when it's done. And we'll kind of talk through that in a minute. Next.
Cool. And just to highlight again what Alan was saying, it's likely that you're going to do an all of the above approach. So if you don't have the right technical experts, whether again you're greenfield or you've been in this for 10 years, it'll likely be a combination of upskilling, likely a partner. If you're in ServiceNow Impact, whether it be advanced or total or guided, or if you don't have that, supplementing wherever you need to, making sure to empower the employees that you do have, potentially growing younger devs into that architect role. All of the above is likely to be the approach that you'll end up taking. So from a level 2 perspective, so you want to define what the meeting cadence is. Now, if you are greenfield, and what I mean by that just real quick is you're very extremely new to ServiceNow, you're still in the implementation phase, that meeting cadence is likely to be more frequent. So more likely once every couple of weeks. And it'll be more on the design side. So, okay, we want to implement this particular thing. We've figured out that it's a customization instead of a configuration. You'll be having more of those types of discussions. Now, if you're later on in your journey, more likely you're going to be talking about data governance or your development practices and what are the best practices? How do you want to go about doing that? You'll be making more of those determinations. So define how you make the decisions. This is, do you want to do it by consensus? Do you want to do it by majority? How do you want to do the decisions? Do you want to have it be data-based? Just how are you going to make those decisions? Now, capturing the decisions, if you have SPM, so Strategic Portfolio Management, you have the RIDEC that's available to you. So capturing decisions in there is a really nice way to do that. Otherwise, you can use spreadsheets, wikis. Each one of these has different trade-offs, so try to think through that. Define your golden rules. So as Alan was talking about before, make sure you have those well-defined. Now, dependencies, the capturing mechanism, this is what I was just talking about. I prefer the RIDEC, but sometimes all you have available to you is a spreadsheet that's on a shared drive. That is better to do than nothing. So keep that in mind. At least have it somewhere. Policies for platform access and development. When you think about the 4 pillars of technical governance as ServiceNow typically defines them, I believe this one is under environment governance. Go to one of those white papers, and I think we have that as one of the links at the end of the deck, but that helps define what that access and development ends up looking like. Challenges, awareness of leading practice. Oh, sorry, did I hear
Sorry.
somebody?
No, I advanced. Sorry.
That's okay. We can have spoilers here. That's all right.
Spoiler alert.
So awareness of leading practices. You know, it's always hard to stay ahead of things with ServiceNow. There is new functionality that comes out every release. Anybody that's been in ServiceNow for any amount of time struggles to stay up to date with everything. So it is extremely important to develop these peer networking groups. So when we had those breakout groups before, try to make contact with those different folks that are in those same roles that you have, so that way you can share that knowledge. Go to ServiceNow user groups, Snugs. Try to go to Knowledge. Try to go to any of these events so that you can build up your network and make sure that you're doing things in the leading practice way, that you're aware of all of the functionality that's available to you. Challenge on deciding a meeting cadence. We talked about that. More frequent up front, less frequent later on as you mature. Mitigations, using ServiceNow resources. There's so many resources that are available to you that I'm going to try not to list them all. There's a lot of links at the end of this slide deck. Again, start slow, then increase the meeting cadence.
Yeah, and so as we move into kind of level 3, so now you're walking, right? So you've got the board stood up, you know who the players are, you decided on a meeting cadence to start out with, you've got a mechanism to capture what you're going to do with your decisions, people understand what they're doing, you got some golden rules, and that sounds like a lot even there. Now we're going to kind of walk into, well, what exactly are you even doing? What are we even doing here? You've got these people meeting up. So one of the things is around platform health and performance. And so ServiceNow has many tools available for you that you can leverage. So you have a health sprint and an instant scan. So a health scan is going to be something you can request from your ServiceNow support account that you have. You can go in and request that. You can also utilize the impact team if you have that. And then other things like instant scan. So this is something on the instance that ServiceNow will actually ships out of the box. It's a bunch of definitions that are in there, a very layman's term way of talking about it. It's a bunch of definitions of guiding, of basically golden rules or leading practices. And then what you can do is you can run those instant scans, a suite of scans and definitions against a table. So like against all client scripts, against custom application scope, whatever that may be. And it'll spit out a report and say, hey, based on the leading practices that you have defined, and you can add your own, this is things that we're seeing that you need to work on. Or the health scan, which covers the entire platform, very high level, and uses ServiceNow's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pre-built scan definitions that they have on their side. This is going to give you a report card for your instance. So that's one of the key items that you just want to get that information, have it available. We'll talk through in just a second on how to work through that, but that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that you would want to look at. Then you want to be able to capture the technical debt. So now you've got a system or a tool that you're using for your decisions and risks and things, but then how are you actually capturing the technical debt? And then at this stage now, walking your board is starting to provide solutions, because now you're actually meeting, you're talking through these things. So now solutions are starting to come out of it. Also, you'll see policies mentioned here as a continuous improvement kind of cycle feeds back in. You may end up creating more golden rules, like, oh yeah, that actually popped up. Whoop, we forgot that golden rule. Boom, you create the policy around a certain action, right? And then this part, as walking for your technical governance board, you're starting to align it to organizational goals. So you've seen that maybe in the chat a few times, people are talking about that. This is where you're justifying the purpose of the board, and which is why earlier on the pre-crawl step, you have executive sponsorship listed there as a dependency, because at some point somebody's going to say, hey, you guys are meeting every Thursday from 11 to 12. What are we getting out of it? What's even happening here? What are you even doing? So you want to start to track, hey, we're meeting and talking about these things, and we're aligning them to the organizational goals that are there. And then as you kind of get into some challenges in the walking stage, it's really capturing the tech debt and making that health assessment actionable. So you got it. You got this 30-page report. You've got all this stuff. What are you actually doing? So when you're capturing the tech debt, ways to mitigate that challenge is you want to make sure that you're capturing the impact of it. What is it doing? Why is it here? The complexity of it. How difficult was it? Is it something that only took a few minutes to do, but it was tech debt that was needed? Was it something major that we needed to do? What was the cost to do that, or what cost implication does this have? And then as well as the risk, what's the risk to the organization if we leave it? What if we don't? Those kinds of things. And then your justification, again, why are you doing it? And then that could provide the value. We're doing this because it provides X to Y team to allow them to do Z, something to that effect. And then for the health scan, working through that as an example, you will be given a score based on things like your performance, your upgradability, your manageability, things like that. There's like 5 or 6 categories that you're rated on. You're going to be given a score. And so it's recommended to really target, obviously, the lowest score where you're performing the least successful, and start with the highest priority. So those health scan results are categorized in things such as fix. That means you need to probably fix these things. That's your P1 equivalent. And then you have others that are classified as recommend. And that's like, hey, recommend that you review this. This might be a P2, P3 kind of thing. So that's where you want to start with your health scans and other things like that. So Nick, I didn't know if you had anything else to kind of add in the sprint scan piece of it or anything else with this column.
No, I think you nailed it. And I'm trying to answer some of the open Q&A. I'm trying to get through that. So might have to save that towards the end, but these are great questions that are coming through. So thank you, keep them coming. And actually just general logistics wise, if you're putting your questions into the comments section, it may be harder for us to get to. So please try to put them over in the Q&A side, and we'll make sure to cover those at the end of this.
And if we don't get a chance to answer all the questions live, I'll post answers on the same page where I post the link to the recording and the deck.
Cool. All right, so from a level 4 perspective, the first thing that I would call out is most companies don't get to level 4, or at very least, they're working towards it right now. And I just want to be realistic about that. These are things that are high level of maturity. They're great to have. They are ideals. They are theoretical in a lot of cases. So consider these more of like a guiding North Star as opposed to a necessarily you're not doing it right if you don't have this. So work towards it. Don't beat yourself up over it. And if you've ever looked at a health scan or health assessment and you don't have 100% across the board, consider it that same way. You don't have to have 100% across the board. If you do have your executives that are pushing for that, that is not the spirit of that particular item. So feel free to reach out and we can have conversations. Hopefully you've got an impact team that you're working with and they're telling you that same thing. Okay, all of that preamble aside, from a tech debt scoring mechanism, in an ideal sense, what you would do is you would have the level of effort for how much it requires to back out that tech debt. So that way you can start comparing those things to new demands that are coming up. And what you're trying to figure out is during that demand process, when you're setting the stage for what are we actually going to go after as a group, you can say, this is the level of effort for this new functionality. This is the level of effort for the tech debt that we currently have, but that tech debt is causing us higher levels of operations. So, maybe more administrative efforts, maybe from a development effort, you're having to support that a fair amount. And maybe you can't implement some of the newer functionality that's come out. So like, maybe you created an integration once upon a time, and now there's a spoke that's available in iHub. Well, you're not getting all of that new functionality from that spoke as it comes out, and you're having to update this as you go. If you can, it would be great to back that out, but you want to be able to compare that to the level of effort for new functionality. And that way you've got an apples to apples so that you can actually have that discussion more properly. So that's very nice to have. Doing that RIDAC tracking, so we we talked about that earlier on, but getting more into not just the decisions, but you're actually getting into the risks. You're actually trying to quantify these things as opposed to just writing it down on a sheet of paper. You're actually putting metrics alongside of it. So LOE estimation, we talked about measuring success. What are the other KPIs that you would want to have for these governing bodies to be able to say, yes, we're doing it right? One thing I might suggest is if you have a design review board, this tech review board that we're talking about, and it's the third time the same item has been brought up sequentially, that's probably not a well-run governing board. You want to figure out what can we fix, what can we change to make it to where we can get an up-down decision on this from the get-go. And that's why that peer review piece is actually there, is to make sure that it's actually been a vetted idea first. That's also why you have the process owners earlier on in the demand intake piece. That way they can vet it for, is this a good idea? Is this capturing the business requirements in the first place? That's also why you have them in the governing board as well, so that they can speak to exactly that. So just an idea for measuring that success. Multi-vendor governance. I think vendor management is a giant topic, and a lot of companies are pushing towards that. But how do you go about governing those particular vendors? What sort of tooling do you have to work with them? Obviously, there's vendor management, there's vendor risk management within ServiceNow, but there's all sorts of other mechanisms for doing that. So incorporating that into your governance practices would be very helpful. Okay. Dependencies, I'm going to try to get through these a little bit faster. So RIDAC, we talked about tech debt being properly captured. We've talked about that. In my ideal state, it would be more like a custom app where you would actually be tracking all of these things, and then you can have records where you could compare to demand records. Again, so that way you can compare the LOE apples to apples. Knowing what success looks like. So what are we working towards? How do we measure it? Scoring and rating of technical debt for challenges. It is going to be a challenge. You need to figure out what are the things that you want to capture, so that way you can make better decisions. I'm pushing for what's the LOE associated to back it out, but also you want to be thinking about what's the ROI of having that technical debt in the first place to meet the business requirements. Are the business requirements something that you really need to do within ServiceNow? And I'm saying this as a ServiceNow employee. Not everything needs to fit into ServiceNow. So having those conversations for, is it a good fit? Does the ROI make sense? And what is the LOE to end up backing it up? From a mitigation perspective, again, evaluation of this impact, complexity, the cost, the risk, all of these things in an ideal state, you're actually going to be capturing those up front. I know it sounds super heavy because a lot of the people that are on this are greenfield. You don't have to do all of this up front. You can work towards these things as your process matures. And defining the KPIs, we've talked about that a fair amount. So, and if you thought that was pie in the sky, level 5 brings it up a notch too.
All right, we're running short on time here, so I want to move. Oh, I don't know if we want to spend some time on level 5 or if we want to go into the lessons learned, because the level 5 is intense.
Alan, I'll take your thoughts on this, but my personal thought is, if they can get to level 4, they're doing great. So maybe we skip and go to the lessons learned.
Okay, that would be great. I think that's a good idea because I want to get through some of these, and I want to take some of these because, and for those of you who don't know me, I spent about 10 years out in the field working with customers to implement ServiceNow. So I've experienced some of the pain that you all are feeling as well. And the first lesson learned that I want to bring up here, and one of the most important, is that you need to have your stakeholders engagement. I was working with a really large financial organization, and we were supposed to be there implementing a service catalog services portal, and we could never really get things off the ground because they hadn't defined their service catalog. And every time we talked to somebody, we got a different story because there was actually 3 different ways that they were doing service catalog. And we needed an executive sponsor or stakeholder to step in there and tell us, what is the one defined way. And so when you don't have that defined executive support and stakeholder engagement, oftentimes you'll spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and never getting anywhere, which can be extremely frustrating. They did eventually finally get someone to take the reins there, but it was after 3 or 4 months of a lot of hours used up on the contract. The next one I would bring up is clear definitions of roles and responsibilities, which is closely related to the one example that I was just talking about. Is they didn't have one clearly defined service catalog owner for that process, and as such we struggled a lot with trying to define that. And that goes for what is this person, a business process owner, is this person a technical person? And we recognize that in some organizations people wear more than one hat, but you still need to have these roles defined so that which hats that person's wearing, and being able to hold them accountable for what they're supposed to be doing and making sure that other people aren't stepping into their lane. So the next one is effective change management. I don't know if Alan or Nick, if one of you want to take that one real quick.
Alan, do you want to do that? And I'm trying to type out an answer
Yeah.
for Kumar.
Yeah, so the main thing with effective change management is we talked a lot today about like what you're going to do, right? You got these actions, the board's excited, you start to tally up everything, but you have to make sure that you're being mindful of change management and how you're actually implementing these things. You don't want to go and all of a sudden push through 50 new things. You want to, again, start small, start easy. And funny enough, on August 15th, so just a few days ago, on Now Create, ServiceNow pushed out a brand new paper on OCM and governance, about how they marry those two together and how you can use both to make sure that your governance has proper OCM in mind. So we'll definitely have a link to that as well.
And you can never start OCM too early or have it too often, in my opinion. It's one of the highly underutilized tools to be successful. Another thing is adaptability and flexibility. You don't want this to get to be too onerous. And I think there was somebody who was putting in the Q&A in the chat earlier about how they do this, or it was in our breakout room actually, where they were talking about how they have a process in place to make sure that they get the governance, but it's not like just all this bureaucracy, because then people get really frustrated with it and it's hard to maintain it, because the more frustrated people get, in my experience, the more they figure out workarounds to the process. And obviously continuous improvement is a huge one. As I think Alan said earlier, you're going to iterate on this, like when he's talking about the golden rules. Those will change over time. You'll add and subtract to those. Some of those will get embedded into your processes, that sort of thing. So just be prepared for that continuous improvement aspect to be happening, and that you don't have to be perfect right out of the box. I think a lot of times, especially in our world today, we feel like everything has to be perfect when we launch it. It doesn't. Baby steps, are better than no steps at all. And that's really the main message that we're trying to get across to you today, that, you can take what we're talking about today and get started with something. And, once you start to get a toe in the door, next thing you know, you got a foot, and next thing you're in the door with your governance program and it's running along really well. All right, so I want to leave some time for Q&A. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up our last poll, which is wrong. It was supposed to be the one I was doing earlier. But I will get the poll running, and as the poll is running, Alan and Nick will start picking up some of the questions and start answering them live. So there's the poll, and let's get started with some of our questions here. We have one about the health scan. Can Nick or Alan, can one of you take that one?
Yeah, oh, is that from Rohan?
Mohammed?
Oh, from Mohammed. Oh, they're both health scan. Okay.
Actually,
Are those the health scans? Okay, yeah. So if you do not have an impact team, you should be able to ask one of your ServiceNow reps, so whomever you're in contact from ServiceNow. If you're not an impact, I think you get at least 1 or 2 free health scans per year. If they tell you otherwise, I apologize for being wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. But yeah, please reach out to them. And if you don't know who that is, you're welcome to reach out to me. I have a very easy email address, nick.nash@servicenow.com, and I'm happy to point you to the correct person on the ServiceNow side to get you that.
All right, if any of you have a question you want us to answer that hasn't been put into the Q&A, if you want to, you can should be able to unmute yourself and ask the question. So if you want to put your hand up, I see Manoj Kumar has had your hand up for a long time here. Is there something you still wanted to talk about? All right. Is there anyone else who has a question they want to ask live? This is your chance. You have our two experts here. Don't be shy.
And if not, we can continue going down the Q&A.
Yeah, Niwas has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I just put on the chat board also. I think, not a question, but, we have a lot of information and this webinars and a lot of documents are helping us a lot. But I think as a genuine user of ServiceNow platform, what I do want to, what I have learned through over the years is, how much help CSDM is helping us in terms of using the platform. I think governance falls in the same, we just take it lightly. I want to make sure that we give a feedback saying that governance is not nice to have kind of thing. It is most important thing to use the platform more effectively. So I just want to kind of humbly ask this, that somewhere we have to put this message saying, if this platform we are selling to organization, we want to kind of highlight that. Don't take it lightly. Use it the right way so that you will get more benefit. That's something I want to just say. One of the lessons learned, we should include that.
Yes,
Again, as a user of the platform. So,
well, that's why Sarah's replatforming, because she didn't have governance. Courtney, I see you had your hand up. I've unmuted you if you want to ask your question.
Well, one thing I'll just throw in here as well, I want to reiterate to Niwa's point as well. The talking about governance, one of the main questions is, we finally get this thing stood up, but then we don't know what to do next. And so there are a lot of documents out there. I mean, in this research for this video here, webinar here, there was over 30 plus documents that I personally went through to try to pull in the best pieces. And so the goal of this webinar, and Britta will make sure the deck in PDF format gets out to you all for your consumption, is that we try to take everything and bring it into one deck. That one maturity model slide really has a lot of good content in there. And some were saying, hey, what do we do on, we have multi-vendor governance right away, or multi-vendors in our environment, why wait till step 4? And so you wouldn't do that. You would move things around, shift it around, but you have to have your own policies, golden rules in place before you can tell the other vendors what you would like for them to do and follow. So this deck here and this presentation was meant to bring in a bunch of information from everywhere else and really consolidate it into a comprehensive and concise presentation that we did in like 40 minutes with the breakout rooms and all that. So I think it was, hopefully you found value in it and enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time. And so that's why we put together that staging slide. And, just to underscore what Alan said, if you have particular requirements, feel free to move that around. That's not written in stone. It's not a tablet that we got on the mountain. Bend it towards what you need.
All right, and Courtney, are you?
Yeah, hi, just off of mute. Hi, yeah, very quickly, I work for partners, and I've been working with ServiceNow since about 2008, having shook hands with Fred Luddy. So definitely not a newbie, but I've been involved with setting up technical governance boards a few times, and even with clear process and permit to design, permit to build, permit to release, still things slip through the cracks. And what I've seen and what we've attempted to do, and others, is to try and put in some feedback when you actually get into building. So having defined a clear entry criteria to a permit to, a technical design authority, Then if they give you a permit to build, off go the developers, but then they go into agile sprints, and sometimes big solutions can take a few sprints to build, and what you see is that it veers off the permit to build, and then only when you start going into the tools like health scan and check like that, then you may see this is not what was given a permit to build. So what I've seen is people will try to build in a feedback or a loop while you are still building. If your stories are changing, then to go back and answer the same entry criteria again, so that you can gate that before you even get to looking at the technical design or the technical, build.
Yeah, so
Things like
if I can
yeah,
summarize it a little bit,
thanks. So,
yeah, no worries. So from a demand perspective, it's helpful to have that tight and geared towards what you would need for when you get to that technical governing board. And you need those feedback loops between those two different groups. So completely agree. You also need that feedback with the executive board as well
my
to make sure that
question,
you're.
absolutely.
Yep,
But my question was, I've seen people where you've got the permit to build, off go the developers, but then I've seen where people have tried to put in a questionnaire for every new story that gets put to the sprint, which really, it's cumbersome. It slows down build process. Otherwise, I've seen, and I've actually done, is to say, okay, if you do create a new story, just answer the questionnaire. If it's a bunch of news stories, even, so you're not doing it for every individual news story, but only then if you trigger, yes, I must go back to TDA or Technical Design Board to have my permit to build reapproved. And it's so, I'm just wondering, is that the best way of doing things? Have people done that? Have you guys thought about that? So you've gone past,
yeah.
you've gone past, you've gone past permit to solution, permit to build, and now you're into build, before you do permit to release.
Yeah, and depending on the industry, depending on what you're doing, you need a more robust process or a less robust process. And what I would encourage, and what Alan and I have both been saying, is iterate on this. If you're finding it to be too cumbersome of a process, the fact, if you're becoming the bottleneck by having this governance process, then that governance process is not working correctly.
Yeah, I agree.
So with that in mind, I mean, I liken it to change management. If you have an overly cumbersome change management process, people are going to find ways to go around it because they are
Absolutely.
incentivized to do it. So this is that exact same thing. So right size for the organization, for the industry. If you're in the Department of Defense, you probably need a heavier gated process. Now, if you are in something that is a much smaller organization with less regulatory requirements, you can probably get away with a lot more streamlined process. And making sure to have those conversations regularly as part of this governing body to make sure that you're doing it correctly and what's needed, I think that'll be the best approach to do that.
Yeah, it is just trying to, you can't capture everything, but you just don't want to miss the big mistakes. And no, I think, no, great. Thanks for the feedback, because it seems to confirm that, the approaches that I have taken in the past are not too far off the mark.
I'm sorry, folks. I
Thank
know
you.
this is a great discussion, but I really got to wrap this up because, people need to leave and have already left. But I just want to remind you that next month we'll be talking about why technical people need soft skills. I have a group of members of this group that'll be presenting on that next month. And also in September, I'll be having an Ask the Experts session on upgrades that'll be led by Willem Zeller, who's another MVP from our community. And we're going to really focus on the technical aspects and what tools you can use in ServiceNow to facilitate upgrades. And we're hoping to also have another session on upgrades from a platform owner's perspective. So TBD on that. Stay tuned on my LinkedIn channel. And thank you all for attending today, and please fill out the post-event survey if you still have a few moments left to do so, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. Bye-bye.